Story number 59. Class President of the USA. There's a common line of bullshit that is delivered to children in the United States, in my generation, and probably for many others, that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. All you got to do is work hard enough, and you can do anything you want. You can even be president of the United States of America. When I was a teenager, I grew my hair out long. I was pretty young. I'm sure it had something to do with like Nine Inch Nails and Faith No More, some rock music. I never listened to Megadeth, so I can't really blame it on that. A lot of other hair bands I didn't listen to, but I was pretty quick to decide that, let's see, another way of telling this is, I often used to tell it like this, that up until the age of 12, I so desperately tried to get along with people, to fit in, to be normal, to be just like everyone else, and failed miserably and got mocked for my pathetic failure of an attempt. I got beat up a lot, and just made fun of, and I just felt like a runt, But I desperately wanted to be normal and be accepted as normal, and just be loved and accepted and belong. So something, when I hit puberty, something flipped in me where I was like, you know what? Fuck you people. I don't want to be a part of your world. I don't want to be anything like you. I don't give a shit if you accept me. I don't fucking care. So I, started getting into intelligent forms of reactionary anti-conformity. Which was a lot of music and books, and I guess I also met kids that were not like everyone else, and they were cool. Whereas the other kids I had met that were not like everyone else, that were not accepted, they were dorks, and they were also mocked and beaten up. And certainly I met kids who just weren't even playing that game. They weren't trying to be like everyone else. They weren't trying to be accepted. So they weren't failing at it. They were doing something else. They were listening to different music. They were reading different books and telling different stories, just being different people. So with a healthy dose of anger and shame, I took up with these intelligentsia outsiders, nonconformists. These kids who I thought were wise and cool. Look at this fucking mountain that I'm on. It's so beautiful. I'm up in northern Mendocino. Anyway, even though I had, cemented myself in a group of friends, I still had anger at the normal world, whatever you want to call it. And I remember in high school, I would often stand up on the benches and scream at everybody and call them sheep, and nothing that you probably haven't heard before, angry teenage shit. But it was pretty amazing that I would mock all the kids in the school, and I no longer got beaten up. And it might have been because when I was 13, I defended myself against a friend making fun of me, and I used Taekwondo on him. And some people tried to sick another one of the dorky kids at me, and I managed to just block all of his feeble punches and convince him that I was not his enemy and that he was not to fight me and that they had just suckered him into a fight because they wanted to see me hurt him, which I had no interest in doing. Woohoo, believe for me. So I started to get a type of clout. In high school, being this angry but wise. Angry, but you can talk to him about things you can't talk to other people about. I began to be kind of cool. I dressed really weird. I was a very successful nonconformist. Wore makeup and shopped at thrift stores, all that garbage in the mid-90s, early 90s. This is all a long preamble to give a picture of what this story is that I'm telling. I think I did smoke pot for the first time at the age of 13, but I think I got into doing it regularly, like every day, when I was 15. And that's when I began to be a lot more fuck you, I don't care, as opposed to fuck you, I hate you. Apathy. It was very good apathy. Oh, look at these fucking vultures. Look at these fucking vultures. This story isn't super interesting to me, but I'm sorry. Notice I'm getting so distracted by the beautiful scenario I'm in. So yeah, I was kind of a stoner goth kid. Alternative rock, what they'd call indie later, or emo later. Reading Sartre and Camus and Kafka and Ginsberg and Burroughs and all that silliness, listening to Violent Femmes and Morrissey. And Nine Inch Nails and Faith No More, and getting into a whole, I don't fucking care thing. I don't want to be a part of this world, blah, 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 blah. And class president was being voted on. And I don't remember if somebody suggested I do it or if the idea just occurred to me that something like a president was so fucking absurd and useless. And people were giving their speeches and advertising about what they were going to do. And I just thought it was so idiotic. And, I got the bug up my ass that I was like, I can do anything if I put my mind to it. I bet I could be class president. And so I created a campaign that was just like, I'll speak for you in the halls of high school. I'll get marijuana made legal in our high school. I'll make sure you can listen to your Walkman anytime you want. That you can have long, extended recesses where you can just walk around and smoke cigarettes or do whatever the fuck you want to do in the middle of the day. It was an absurd platform of just gobbledygook that the reactionary kids would want. And I was like, I'll change the curriculums and I'll fight for you to be free to, drive your car to school even if you're a freshman, shit like that. But I was also saying, I don't give a fuck about it. I was being very openly that I was mocking the whole position. There's a better word for it. I've forgotten right now. But certainly the whole institution of class presidents. And so, of course, when the vote happened, I got a lot of votes, but the teachers threw it out. And the kids that I knew who were part of the electoral process said, you would have won class president if it hadn't been for the fact that the teachers threw it out because they didn't want you to be eligible. So I was like, oh. Truck drove by. Will the dust cloud hit me? Oh, that's nice. Doesn't look like it will. And I didn't really care, and I kind of hemmed and hawed and announced over it about just well, you should remember that this is how democracy works, that even if you flout how idiotic democracy is and you get elected, they won't give you the office because they don't want you to have it, and the people in power are the ones that actually make these decisions, not the people. Not the people who vote, but the people in power. And I've never voted for president of the United States of America. I grew out of that high school angry, hating goth kid into kind of a free love, hippie, healer, teacher, weirdo, world traveler, less hatred and anger at the world and more just like, I don't know, kind of reverting to my pre-anger mood of just being like, I don't know what the hell to do with this world. I don't know what to do here. But I still never voted for a president because I just thought that the whole thing was absurd. Like, I always thought that the president was a dumb figurehead, and that it was like the people joining together to announce together who they wanted their public face to be, talking to themselves. Who do we want talking to America as an American to represent Americans so that all Americans are represented by this face? Who do we want to be wealthy enough and smart enough and strong enough and all that stuff? What is the point of a figurehead? But it never made sense to me. I mean, I never trusted any of the presidents. I've never trusted any of the political office. Like, the whole thing, I just think is a gigantic shit show of commerce. That regardless of what you vote for, there's people pulling strings. And I think even in my ignorance of a teenager, I had a very clear understanding that it was too complex for me to understand, and as I came to grow up more, and just came to believe that it was all being controlled by lobbyists and corporations, and that the idea of the nation was a antiquity, an anachronism, that indeed the world was controlled by money now. The world is controlled by corporations, which are international conglomerates that have nothing to do with individual populaces except how they can be exploited, individual land masses as much as except how it can be exploited. And an American-owned company might be based somewhere where it doesn't have to pay taxes to America, so it's not really American, and they have all their offices and their industry and stuff in other places, and yet they have a brand name that people associate with America. So the actual controllers of America are not based in America, and they are not American. Whatever American is, because America is the whole world shoved together and dancing around. That hurts my heart. My heart feels bad. Because it's the fundamental distrust I have towards my own decisions and willpower, and putting in a Buddhist context, understanding that the root of so many of my choices, my decisions, are greed, hatred, and delusion, just total making shit up so that I feel better, or think I feel better, or think I will feel better if I believe in some made up bullshit, or saying I love someone because I view some future possibility of financial stability or even emotional stability or something. A greed for something as opposed to just being in the moment of the sensation. And perhaps even love in general has been no, that's not the right word. Romantic love, coupling love, the weird obsession and binding that causes marriage. The fantasy that we can live together forever and be happy. We can make each other happy. We can be happy together. That even that is somehow manipulated in a way that I can't trust. That the desires to do it are something that when I look at the whole picture is not something that I would consciously choose if I were clearly seeing it. So if I can't trust myself, I can't trust the government, the face of the government, my ego, my face. Is it the president, the ego of the nation? The ever-changing ego of the nation, 4 years, 8 years? The tyrannical dictator, the buffoon, like a rock, only dumber. Sexual infidelity, lying, murder. And then all the other good things they do for us. Why do we get hung up on the negatives? What are you going to be when you grow up? Father. A good father. A good son. A good spouse. Community member. Harmless. What do you want to be when you grow up? Harmless. Not contributing to the pain and suffering of the world. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. Yeah, so maybe that was something I innately knew. That I didn't trust myself. I didn't know what the hell I was doing here. I know that when I left Indiana, I had openly said that I don't know what I'm doing, but I have to be alive, so let this body be a portal to be put to good use. Let me be useful. And I remember saying that to a kid when I first went to New York, and he said, "That's horrible, you just want to be used." And I'm like, yeah, I want to do something useful. I still feel that. And it's weird, in the spiritual traditions, Christianity and Hinduism, they talk about the use of living a life of servitude, service to others. Rama, 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 Rama. Rama, 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 Rama. Hare Rama. Anyway, yeah. That any decision for the self, by the self, never results in anything. Never works for me. Never turns out, that was connecting to something I was actually feeling earlier today. This was a number that I spun up a couple weeks ago when I first started doing these, spinning up numbers and telling stories. And I didn't tell this one because somebody showed up where I told the first part. I spun two and I did the first one and didn't do the second one. So when I went to my random number generator, this was still up, and I was like, I guess I can tell that story, because I just wanted to tell a random story today. I wanted to take a break from what I was doing. But I did think earlier today that anything that I've ever tried to do for myself has not worked and has not made me happy. So far. I mean, I could keep doing it. I'm not yet 40, and I probably have many years left in this body on this planet. I could keep trying, but most of my life I've been really, I've gotten much more happiness and entertainment and value out of listening to what the world asks of me and doing it as best I can. And I'm visiting somebody. I don't know if I'll do an interview with him. He's the same age as other friends of mine. Good vintage 1946. But he's fragile, health-wise. Today's been a day of caretaking. And I've talked to them a lot about my failed relationships and other relationships, and just the fantasy of like, well, all the other people I've ever loved never had any money. And he does. He's got a child too, so he'll probably leave all of his money to his child. His child's older than me, but still. There was that greed in there of just like, well, if I could just be a servant for you till the rest of your life, make you feel loved and help you and cook for you and take care of you, who knows if that'll be another year or another 20. But it's the same impulse that I've been musing over of going to school to get an RN so I could be a hospice nurse, get paid for from an insurance agency or the government or families. Why not just do it with a lover? That's reason enough to love someone, right? To take care of them and make them feel loved for the rest of their life. And inherit something. I keep thinking of, boom, that milk train doesn't stop here anymore. I don't know my motives. I am not the president. And all the songs related to it. Any story told can relate to emotional thing, or the magic of the random number generator giving you what you need when you need it, when you flip the coin. I'm like, yeah, that's what I did need, yeah. Anyway, I'm in Mendocino. It's beautiful. There's lots of vultures. What are those called? Turkey vultures flying over us. Hi, turkey vultures. Look how beautiful you move through the air. Yeah. Like all of us, they want to be on the internet too. They really want to swoop down and steal my iPhone so they can play Candy Crush or something. But I don't have Candy Crush on my phone. I'm sorry, guys. Their beaks probably don't work on the screen. They're going to wait till the new iPhone comes out anyway. Anyway, look at this gorgeous view. Look at this gorgeous, 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 gorgeous fucking view. This is very near where I used to live when I first came to California. And when I say very near, I don't know how near. It would take a while to get there. That's the west, so it's north, right up there. I lived up there. Somewhere north of here, a place called Heartwood. And I remember I would do my work and I would look up, and whenever I'd lift my head, I'd look out over these mountains, and I was like, fuck, this is so gorgeous. I can't believe I get to be in a place like this. And back then, I still had a lot more anger in me, and I'd be a lot more grouchy and complaining in my head all the time. Oh, look at the birds flying. And so I'd be like, and that year, I remember that year I was taking the specific experience of being like, can I live without being a judgmental, critical asshole? Because my mind would always just make up critical shit about people. I would look at people and I would just make up all sorts of shit about how they were bad or wrong, or I didn't like them or something. It was garbage. So I was like, let me just experiment with every time I notice my mind doing that, I'll just say, shut up. I don't want to hear it. Shut up. It's not important. Stop it. It made me kind of lose my ability to be discerning, which I didn't like. But it was funny that at the end of that year, an Israeli kid said to me, "You are the least judgmental person I think I have ever met." And I was blown away that anybody would ever say that about me, because I thought I was such a judgmental, horrible person. But I was like, wow, it worked. And I told this story earlier to the friend I'm staying with. Before I went to walk across Spain with my mom, she suggested I read Paulo Coelho's book, The Pilgrimage, which used to be called The Diary of a Magus, and it was a ritual that he wrote about walking across Spain, and he had a bunch of rituals within it, and one of them was every time he thought something bad about himself, he would stab his index finger nail into the joint of his thumb, like that. So every time he thought anything like, oh, I'm such a fucking idiot, or God, I can always do that wrong, or I'm such a greedy, delusional, hateful asshole. Every time he thought something like that, he would stab his thumb, and within a few days, it was a bloody, raw mess. And that was one of the stories he told about learning to stop being horrible to himself, learning to stop being at war with himself. And although I read that and I took it to heart and I thought it was very wise and I started looking for it, I did not want to rip my thumb up because I knew I would. And some AA person told me I should write out all of the things I believe about myself just to see how horrible they were. And I said, that doesn't work for me, because I've been writing all the horrible things I think about myself for my entire life as a journal keeper, and it just would look like my regular journaling and wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't be shocking at all. I'd be like, yeah, that's what I write all the time. But being in the meditation retreats really did, because there was no distractions. There was no getting away. There was no entertainment. So I would just be stuck with me being horrible to myself. And of course, we were practicing every day loving everyone, ourselves, loving everything, being a just open channel of love. And so whenever I would feel that, then if I would go back to hating myself and being mean to myself, I would feel my heart snap closed. And the dramatic feeling of that made me go like, wow, this is horrible. I don't want to do this anymore. It took months, though, of me practicing before I was able to notice that every time I said anything mean about myself, to myself, I would immediately stop the thought and just say, I love you, Dominic. And sometimes I'd say it out loud, but mostly it was on silent retreats. Even right now, just saying, I love you, Dominic. I talked earlier, a few moments ago, when I was talking about the distrust of myself, the distrust of the president, the distrust of society, and all that, bringing up that hateful childhood stuff, that I felt my heart closing and it hurt so bad. Just saying, I love you, Dominic, right now. I love you, Dominic. I love you, Dominic. There's a resonance in my heart. It feels so good. I love you, Dominic. You can say it. You can say, I love you, Dominic, but you can also say your own name. You can say, I love you. And just feel how good it feels. And especially when you're being hateful towards yourself, which happens so easily. And a lot of us, they use the term reparenting to give yourself a chance to deprogram what your parents may have put in you about what a useless piece of shit you might have been told you were when you were a child. Unfortunately, parents are under a lot of stress and they do stupid, terrible things. And when they grow up, they're sorry for it. But, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, God, how the hell do they know how to raise kids, right? But yeah, whenever you notice yourself being a dick to yourself, you just say, I love you. And your name, I think it kind of helps, but maybe not. I love you, Dominic. Because if you have a self, what is your self? It's a collection of all your triumphs and failures. And if you want to hold on to all the good things you've done and how amazing you are, then you have to hold on to all the shit you've done and all the fuck-ups you've made. And what a heavy weight you have to carry forever, right? So you can let go of yourself, you can practice letting go of yourself. You'll live fine without it, because you never had it anyway, the Buddhists say. You won't notice it's gone, because it was never there to begin with. But meanwhile, till you can completely let go of the self, which may take a few lifetimes, you can love it. You make that the primary function. So I suppose that might be my job, to learn how to love the President of the United States of America, the President of Dominic Vine of the Owls. I'm not going to run for office. Although it would be fun to run for office and just be like, yeah, I smoke my marijuana every chance I get. That's a Allen Ginsberg line. I actually myself don't smoke marijuana every chance I get, but the point I'm making is all the countercultural and wicked things I have done with my life. Just be like, yeah, this is who I am. I can be the President of the United States. You can't blackmail me because I'm open about it. Has that ever worked for a president? I'm a Gemini too. Watch out. It's a new standard in America. Anyway, how do we love our president? I guess that's an important thing in these last 2 minutes, if I'm going to cut this off at a half hour. During the meditation retreat where the president became the president, where this guy was elected, it was really annoying to feel the hatred in my heart towards the people who voted him in before I understood about Brexit and Cambridge Analytica. But to feel the anger and the hatred and the sadness. And I was like, I don't want hatred in my heart for this guy. Who the fuck this guy is? I don't want any hatred in my heart. So how do you look at him and be with him and love him? Forgive him and love him and forgive him and love him and love him and forgive him and have compassion. It's very difficult. But so worthwhile, because who the fuck wants to carry around hatred in their heart? It's terrible. I don't know if there's anything useful in this story. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's loving yourself and loving the president. Trusting the government. Trusting the president. Trusting the society. Those of us who distrust it. No sé. Look at the poison oak in the trees, and the madrone stripping their skin. Oh, how I used to love Northern California. It's nice to visit again. Ooh.